So we've had a lot of people start to ask us, what is this whole headless WordPress thing anyways, and how do I get my site connected? And so that's what I want to go over today. And what we'll do is we'll discuss what we're looking at here. This is our WordPress homepage, which I'm just running on local. And you can see when I go here, it shows this homepage, and I can click here on edit page. And I can add these Gutenberg blocks if I want. Or I could come in here and type in hello world. And if I click save and I come back and I refresh, we see hello world. And with this setup, WordPress is both your backend, where you go to edit your content, where you can set up your SEO and all that kind of stuff. And it's your front end. It's what's displaying the ultimate result to the end user. And this has been the norm since basically forever, since content management systems first came out. This would be a traditional monolithic setup. And there's a lot of great things about monolithic setups. For one, you just have one hosting provider. With the caveat, however, that a lot of people aren't able to get the performance that they would like out of a monolithic setup. So they end up combining this with something like Cloudflare. And Cloudflare, what it does is it takes a cache of your site hosted by your WordPress backend, and it tries to deploy it on a CDN. And a CDN, what you see when this page first loads, it's a bunch of points all over the globe, like this. You get all these points across the globe that have a cache copy of your WordPress site, and it actually can help deliver your site quicker and more performantly and get you better page speed scores. Now, there's a second issue with delivering everything from a monolithic backend, and it's that the backend isn't just the database. The backend also now has to be the generation engine for all the HTML and CSS that also is being delivered. So whether or not you're delivering that directly to the end customer, or whether or not you put Cloudflare in front of it so that your backend server sends a copy to Cloudflare and Cloudflare sends a copy to the ultimate user or some other CDN. No matter how you have that set up, that does put an extra load on your database, because your database, your backend, your WordPress site is having to generate all of that template content. There are other drawbacks to this, which is if you want to do anything, because you have one monolith, if you want to do anything, and I'm going to go back here, you basically have to install more plugins. So if I want a form, I need to come in here. Oh, this is search and install plugins. I need to add a plugin. I would need to add a forms plugin and go find one and search through all this stuff and install one. And it probably is going to cost extra money. Another thing is a lot of people need to actually add caching plugins at this layer too. So there's W3 Total Cache, which is popular. I think there's a Jetpack, which is popular. It adds security, it adds speed, it does all this kind of stuff. And you need these things because your backend is also hosting your front end. And your front end is probably one of the most common attack vectors for people to hack you and where most of the slowdown comes from. So by having one big monolith, you're increasing the possibility for your site to be slow. You're adding extra service layers that you're going to need to be quicker, like a CDN. And further, you need more plugins and things to handle common tasks. So a lot of people have started pushing for the concept of headless. I'm going to make this bigger because we don't need to look at the website right now. And you'll come in here to say, what is headless and why is it different? Traditionally, CMSs come in two parts, the back end and the front end. And those two parts come together. So here's the traditional model. You get your back end and your front end as one piece. This whole block could just be the word WordPress. What we're looking to do instead is to give you a front end and then an API in between and then a back end that's separate. So this would be labeled WordPress and this would be labeled Clutch. Your back end now is going to be much smaller. You do not need high-end hosting anymore. You do not need Jetpack anymore. You do not need Cloudflare anymore. You can just use vanilla WordPress, fewer plugins, no paying for performance plugins, no Cloudflare. And with this thing being much lighter weight with fewer plugins, you have less stuff that you need to update. So the maintenance becomes much easier. You can rock maybe just WordPress, ACF, and Yoast, for example. So what advantages do you get? You gain the ability to basically do whatever you want now, because if I want to add other services, I don't make the backend fatter. If I want forms, I don't need to do that here in the backend and add a forms plugin. If you separate these things, you can use WordPress as the CMS, and then you can come back to the front end and you can attach something else. In fact, if we go to the Clutch website, which is ridiculously fast, it's absurdly performant. Hate to keep tooting that horn, but we really are. Here is the Clutch website. It connects to WordPress over API, so you need fewer plugins. But now I want to do Google Sheets, and we're about to release a video on this. Boom, connect to Google Sheets from Clutch. Don't run that through WordPress. Don't make WordPress fatter. Put WordPress on a diet. Don't make WordPress need to handle your Google Sheets connection. Don't make WordPress need to handle your Zapier connection. Don't make WordPress need to handle your MailChimp connection, and so on and so forth. Your front end, what you're building in Clutch, can directly make all these connections to all these services. And the only thing that you will need to use WordPress for is this, for content management. You'll use it. This is what you'll give to your customer. Your customer will come in here and edit their pages, and they'll click save. And that will send that data over the wire to Clutch, and Clutch will display that. So you will end up with two hostings. You'll end up with one hosting for your WordPress backend. This can be WP Engine. This can be, a lot of y'all like Hostinger. Doesn't matter, because the API that we need is built into WordPress core. So you can use any hosting environment that you want, and it will show up, and the API will be included, and we can connect to it in Clutch. And that happens in here. You can go over this guide. You'll give us your WordPress URL. You'll hit connect. You'll have our plugin installed on the other end. And when you do that, you get a little green light, and now they're connected. And WordPress becomes one of many services that you'll be able to connect. You could have some of your pages powered by WordPress. You could have parts of your pages directly powered by a Google Sheet. You can have some pages that are just directly connected to Zapier, and Zapier can send you data everywhere. So if you think about it another way, WordPress has been your, if we go here, it's been your hub. It has to control everything. Everything that you want to do has to go through WordPress, and you have to keep making WordPress fatter and fatter and fatter. Meanwhile, there's all this innovation going on around the web, all these new APIs coming out, all these new tools that you probably want to use that you can't, because if nobody comes in and builds a WordPress plugin for you, you're just out of luck. But not any longer. You can use almost all of these plugins, plus you can go use any third-party API or service directly without making your WordPress backend any fatter. You get the best of both worlds, and you're future-proofed. The web is moving to a more headless and composable future. And as that happens, these big fat monoliths are going to be reducing in popularity, and people are going to be building less plugins, and you're going to get left behind. So we're preparing you all for the future. You can see that with things like the Mock Alliance. And you can come here, and this is all about composable. It's all about breaking up the monoliths of WordPress and Shopify, both of whom have these gigantic monoliths you have to keep making fatter and fatter to get any work done. Everybody's starting to push towards composable. You also have Next.js. And in Next.js, everything are little connected pieces, and you compose, that's what they mean by compose, composable. You compose your site. Your site becomes the hub, not your backend is the hub. Your site becomes the hub. And you connect as many backends and as many services together, and you kind of weave them together to get you what you need. And I'm not the only one that believes that this is the future. Everybody outside of WordPress believes that this is the future. But if we start looking, WP Engine has a great article written here. What is a headless CMS? How do you decouple it? They're also working on Faust, which is a whole headless toolkit, which is really great, which is really awesome. If you're an engineer, a lot of engineers building headless sites are already doing this. And there's an article here, and there's others from Netlify. I recommend doing your research and looking into this more. But Once you decouple all of this, you end up not only with the freedom to use most of the plugins from WordPress, and not only do you end up with the freedom to use anything that you want to use from the web, any third-party services, but it also does something else on this side. You can get rid of Cloudflare, because rather than use cloud hosting. Now, what is cloud hosting? Cloud hosting is when you use things like WP Engine or Hostinger. And with cloud hosting, you pick a server, one server, at one location somewhere on the internet, and you host your site there. Now, that's not good because you can end up with massive latency if people are trying to get to that website from the other part of the world. And also, you're giving yourself one point of failure. And there's many other issues with this. So what people do is they put Cloudflare in front of that, and then your site, your slow server, sends the connection to Cloudflare, which then caches you across their edge network, which finally delivers that to the end user. So Cloudflare tries to act like an edge network for you. But it's bad because you make updates and then you have to wait for the cache to get cleared out. You have to wire all this up. It never works very well. So Next.js, which is a Vercel product, they came out with this idea of, wait, why don't we just run the actual server on the edge itself? And then we don't need a cloud server and an edge CDN. What if we just run the site on the edge? And that's what we do. So we have Clutch hosting. We'll go back to clutch.io. We have our own hosting products. Let me go find where that is. Let's go to pricing. Here, you're publishing to the edge with one click. So you're gonna look at this, you're gonna say $20. I only pay $4 or $6 or whatever at Hostinger. Yeah, but Hostinger's giving you a terrible, crappy server that's only in one location. And if you're a company trying to build the cheapest site possible, I get it. Then you should keep hosting there. The good news is with Clutch, you can export this stuff and you can host it wherever you want. But I'm going to show you something that you cannot deny. People try to act like I'm playing tricks on them. And they're like, oh, this doesn't tell the full story. Look at our website. It's huge. Look at these images. They're huge. This is JavaScript carousel here. More images. These are all individual images, patterns, backgrounds, images. Look at all this stuff. Look at this. This is fully interactive. And all of this is powered by JavaScript in here. Okay. So I don't know what cheating I did. But we'll come to Elementor and we'll run a page speed test on it. And we'll look. And what does it have? Some JavaScript and some images. It's the same. If our page is longer and has more images on it. Okay. So they probably are also running this through Cloudflare. They probably also are using all sorts of caching plugins. And let's just see the score that they get. Completes. And while that's running, let's see the score that we get. So we'll let these two run and we'll come back. But we're not doing any cheating. All that we're doing is we're going headless. The WordPress backend is simply being an API. WordPress is not doing the heavy lifting of delivering the UI, of delivering the actual HTML and CSS. It's not having to generate that in PHP on our tiny little Hostinger server or on our WordPress, our WP Engine cloud server. It's not having to do any of that work. The WordPress backend is now just sitting there taking a nap, and your Clutch front end every once in a while sends a little request and it's able to handle it with ease. Your Clutch front end then handles building itself across the edge network and delivering it at breakneck speed, at speeds that are just simply, frankly, not even possible with WordPress. And usually we get even higher than this, by the way. We got to 88 today, but usually we're getting in the 90s. But still look at these scores in comparison. And I would say that ours has no other plugins, no caching, no extra CDNs, none of that kind of stuff. This is the vanilla experience that you will get. So I would put down the challenge. Like, I think that if we actually put effort into this, I don't think that with all the king's horses and all the king's men, right? I don't think with all the plugins in the world and all the caching services in the world and everything else, I don't think anybody can build sites that basically are as fast and as performant as ours are going to produce vanilla, simply because we are headless, we're built on top of Next.js, and we host on the edge. All right, so I want to move on from this topic. And let's actually talk about how this works in reality. You can go do more research on headless. One more thing that comes up commonly is, what about my plugins? Because maybe you love all your WordPress plugins. So we can go back to our backend and you love all of the stuff. You can keep using them. Most of them work with the REST API. Because remember, we connect over API. We connect over that wire, that API wire. So what about, I got asked for, let's see, let's go in here. Metabox. Here we go. 600,000 installations. A lot of people love Metabox. Okay, you're probably wondering, does Metabox work? So Metabox, REST API. And it works. It works via the WordPress REST API. This will just work with Clutch. It just works. It comes over the wire and you can use the stuff. We didn't do anything special for what I'm going to show you on this demo today, where we are about to use and pull over ACF. So just so that you're aware, most things support the REST API, which means that most things are just going to work with Clutch. And for the things that don't, a lot of other things that you use are just things you use on the back end, like things to clone posts, other things like that. Yoast works over the REST API. This just works. All right, so we've been through all this. You've got your headless site. We'll visit it here. It's currently being delivered by WordPress, but let's go ahead and connect this site to Clutch. So to do that, we'll come here to our plugins. We'll add a plugin. We'll go to upload. We'll go to clutch.io/download. We will download linked file. And need to close some tabs. We'll come here, choose file, downloads, and we're going to install it, activate it. So now what we have is Clutch, Yoast, and ACF, and installed. And if we go to the Clutch plugin, you can see that here. Now we need to get our URL, and this would usually be a live site. I'm using local, but you're probably using a live site, so copy your live site. Come over to Clutch, click on the logo here, paste, hit connect. If you see a green light, which I do, good, you're connected, you're ready to go. So once you do this, nothing changes. Your Clutch site is not going to show up in WordPress. Remember, this is a separated front end. In fact, what you're going to see is that a lot of the stuff in here, like theming settings, have disappeared because WordPress is just meant to be your API now. It's not where you're going to go for your front end anymore. Clutch is going to be your front end. This is only meant to now be a content management system with no head on it. So we'll come over here to Clutch and let's go to our homepage. And when we do, you'll see all this information show up, and we're going to click here, and there's all these different things, but I'm going to do, say our post type is pages. And then we're going to say a specific page. And I think I created a page over here called homepage. Perfect. And we will choose from our pages, we'll choose homepage because that's the one we want. Perfect. And then in here, we can choose a path. And I'm just going to choose / because I want this to be our homepage. It tries to make up a path for you that it thinks would nicely match, but you can change that. And now on our page, we have access to the data from the backend. And all we need to do is bind it. Now, this is somewhat similar to binding data in Elementor. But let's try it. So if we go hit edit on our homepage, we can see that we have a title and whatnot here. And so let's go try that. Let's go to our title, and we'll go to the text, and we'll hit this to open the bind menu. And there's a lot of stuff on this page. So we're going to go find the data page. Here it is. Whoops. Scrolled right past it, but it's right here. On the page, we have get post by slug. And we'll twirl this open, and we have access to the title of homepage, which is what we have here. And we can change this just to make sure it's working. Homepage. We'll add an exclamation point. This is our homepage. We'll hit save, and we'll come back. And we might have to clear cache here. Let's try it again. But you'll see that this is indeed pulling your data from here. So let's make this the other content. So we'll click here and we'll click here and we have content. Now, this is going to do something interesting because I believe this is going to leave it might leave the tags in, the P tags. And this is something we're going to be working on to clean this up. But really the reason why that's happening is because you need this to be a rich text, because the Gutenberg is a rich text. So this needs to be a rich text field. So what we'll do is we'll insert rich text. We're probably going to combine those to where you won't need to do this in the future. Everything can just be inserted regularly here. But we'll come in and we will repeat this and we'll make it to where it gets this content. And what will happen now is this rich text will pick up on the fact that this is using a paragraph, and that will work. So we can come in and say hello, and then we can come in and does this work, and so on. We can add another heading, test 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. We'll hit save. And again, I don't know what's going on here. We have a little cache issue that's happening, but we'll get that fixed. But you can see that it works. Here's that heading. Here's these 2 paragraphs that I inserted. It's just the exact same way that it is here. So you use a rich text to render rich text, or you can bind one field at a time here. And let's see if we can get, I'm going to do one last thing. Let's go over to ACF, and we have a field group here with the title and a subtitle. And we'll say if it's equal to a page, whatever, it doesn't really matter. We're not doing anything real here. So I just did this on all page types, but it doesn't matter. And so we'll come back to our pages and we'll come to our home page. And when we do, we now have a better title and subtitle control. This is probably the way that most of you work. You use some sort of like custom field thing. So we'll put Clutch is the best. It is the most advanced, bestest of the best visual builder. People said that our title wasn't clear enough, so I just made it more clear for you there. All right, we'll hit save. And if we come over to here, and just in case, I'm going to go ahead and hit this button here just in case we need to. We're going to hit refresh. And now whenever we come to our page, we should be able to click on our title. And here it is inside of ACF. It just shows up. And we can say we want that to be equal to our hero title. And here we want this to also be equal to our ACF subtitle. And you can see like Yoast and everything is also in here. You have access to Yoast. You have access to everything. If you go add other plugins, they should start showing up in here. If they don't, tell us. But all the data gets extracted and then it gets made available to you right in Clutch. So look at that. There's Clutch connected to WordPress headlessly with all those benefits of that extreme high performance. It's not very hard. Once you learn it, you just create pages. And then when you create the pages, you click here, you assign it up however you want. But do know that you will be pushing this and hosting it separately from your backend. But that's a good thing. You still have compatibility with those plugins, but you also have the ability to do anything else that you want. You can connect this to anything. We're about to release videos connecting to Google Sheets, Zapier. We'll have videos for everything, but this becomes your new hub. WordPress is just one spoke that comes off your hub, one piece of data access, but your site becomes your hub. Every site you can now craft custom for each customer that you have, and you can build a little hub out of that and connect to all the services that they need. All right, and so to do that, you would click publish here, and you would publish it to, you can test it on our staging hosting, or you would create a production hosting, and you'd publish it. And then at that point, you are ready to go. Or I've already posted a video about how to produce a self-hosting bundle, but you will need to host this on an edge host or a cloud host that supports Next.js. I hope this video clears up a lot of the questions. I'm sure it didn't, but I'm sure there's going to be more. But if there are more questions, just post them in the comments on this video, and I might post a better, more well-made follow-up. And yeah, make sure you like the channel. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want to ask questions in more real time, join our Discord. We host classroom sessions twice a week in there, and we can go over more. So I'll record a better video later based on the comments that are posted. Yeah, but thank you all and best of luck with Clutch. Thank you for all your support.